Why women in groups view themselves as less attractive. So there's kind of a lot to unpack on this one. It's a bit in depth, kind of. If you've ever gone out, it depends on where you live. First of all, I would say that it depends on where you live. It depends on the type of area that you live in. And I argue, for some reason, and this is a phenomenon that I've noticed in my life. For some reason, girls in warmer climates are less picky about sex and relationships, and they're just more cool and down to earth. Now, it does have to do with the culture. It really does. It has to do with the economic culture, the social culture of the area. But for some reason, the weather just loosens women up. It makes them more outgoing, makes them more down to earth. It seems. Now, I haven't been to Texas a whole lot, but I'm talking about Florida, and I'm talking about California. And then this is obviously I'm talking about America, where I'm from. I don't know a whole lot about, like, say, Africa, or it's probably a different dynamic because the social order does come into play. But what I'm really trying to get at is when there's a lot of hot girls, there's a lot of hot girls everywhere, okay? For some reason, women are less picky. Their standards are lower, and they're more down to earth. It's a weird dynamic. It's a weird phenomenon. But like I said, I haven't, there's states in the South where it's warm and hot, but it might not be quite that much. But if you say you go to California, or say you go to Florida, and there's just hot girls, extreme 10s, like just 10 out of 10, 100%, like everywhere. The average girl is not going to view herself as that attractive. Say she's a 7 out of 10, but yet there's for real 10 10s everywhere around her. She's going to feel more like a 5 or a 4. For some reason, she's not really even going to view herself as a 10, because guys are not going to pay as much attention to her as they are the millions of other 10s around her if she's a 7. It's just this weird thing. And this really has a lot to do with female solipsism. It has a lot to do with the female narcissistic trait, which I believe all women inherently have. Okay? Women really do, even ugly ones, really do believe that they're God's gift. And I said this before, in a way they kind of are. They're God's gift to one man, is what it should be. You're supposed to love one man. You're not God's gift to all men. That's a slut. That's a whore. God's gift to all men. Okay, you help some guys get their rocks off and their nuts off, and they think like that makes them celebrities or something. No. That makes you a whore. That makes you a thought. You should be God's gift to one man as a woman, and that's fine. But in today's day and age, in the West, we worship women. We pedestalize them. We lift them up. And that's a big problem. It's probably the core of everything, really. It's the core of all the problems, really, is that we give women too much credit simply for breathing. We give women too much credit simply for existing. And it's interesting to note that when they're placed in competition, when women have to encounter competition from other women, it changes everything. It changes the whole dynamic. This is why women hate each other. This is why women are always fighting. This is why women are always trying to cut each other down, trying to backstab eeach other, trying to throw each other under the bus. This is why women are extremely jealous, because they want all that power. They want all that attention. That's really what it all comes down to. That's really at the core. They want all the attention. I'm the bad bitch. I'm the diva. I'm number one. And I don't believe it's the same for men. Men are in competition. Okay, that is true. But I don't believe it's the same thing. Men are not in competition for themselves. Men are in competition to get women. Women are not in competition to get men. That's not what it is. Women are in competition for their own personal supremacy. That's where women are in competition for. Men are not. It's not the same thing. Men are not competing so that they can be supreme number one. Only male narcissists, and those guys do exist. your Donald Trumps of the world, your Gordon Geckos, your Jordan Belforts of the world, before he got clean and changed his life. These guys are not the norm. Most guys are in competition, whether they realize it or not. You are in a competition. You are in a race, period, whether you realize it or not. The whole point of career, the whole point of getting ahead, ambition, etc., that is competition to fulfill your sexual drive. Sorry to say, but that's what it is, whether you realize it or not. Read Freud. The sex drive is a latent, inherent thing, biological thing that we have to reproduce. And that is why we have ambition and drive to go out and get a career, etc., so that we can reproduce. This is something that is biological. But it's not the same for women. Women are not competing to get a career so they can reproduce. No. Women are not even really competing amongst each other so they can reproduce. Reproduction for a woman is nothing. Reproduction for a woman is like, all I got to do is go out and say yes to any man. Then I'm reproducing, and that's it. They don't care about reproduction. They care about children. I'm not saying that they don't care about children. Women are very maternal. Women are very nurturing. But that's not their drive. Their drive is a solipsistic one. And this is where we get into something that's a little more metaphysical. This is where we get into where I've really had a lot of thought, and I've been stumped by this, because it's really, that really differentiates men and women. Men are not, again, there's always the rare narcissists, but your average man, he doesn't really care that much about his own pedestalization. He doesn't want to uplift him. The average man, of course, like I said, you got your Donald Trumps, whatever, right? You got your megalomaniacs, you got your narcissists. We don't care that much about that. What we do care about is our empire per se. We care about our family. We care about our kingdom, so to speak. We care about those things. I believe that's part of our biology. But it's for other people. It's for us to love a woman, and it's for us to love our kids, and it's for us to raise good kids. It's not for a selfish thing. It's to our detriment, but I believe that men are sacrificial by nature. We sacrifice our bodies and our time to have a career so that we can have a family. It's different with women. Women are not sacrificial by nature. They're selfish by nature, until they have children, and then they become sacrificial. And this is even in the Bible. The Bible says this. God said, I will multiply your pain in childbirth. You will adhere to the man, and to your children you will be, this is just, they're once they have children, they're all about their kids. Even really the truth is that women care about kids more than they do about men. And I've said this before on podcasts, things like that. They really do care about children more than they do men. Men are kind of like a means to an end when it comes to women. Men are interchangeable. Men are utility. Only necessary as long as we're useful. Men are only necessary to women as long as we're useful. They don't love us unconditionally. They love us only when we fulfill the conditions of providing resources, providing security. Then they commit. Then they love us. Very rare for a woman to have an altruistic love for a man. Very rare for a woman to love a man unconditionally. It's just not something that happens a lot. It's usually women view marriage as a kind of partnership towards a means to an end, which is family. Men, it's not the same thing. Men love women altruistically. Men love women unconditionally. And our competition is for our kingdom. Us going out and having a career is so that we can support a kingdom, support a family. So, and what I said earlier about metaphysical, when I said that I've been kind of stumped by, is my question was, are women inherently narcissistic? Are women inherently solipsistic to the point where it's almost evil, to the point where it's like they really don't give a crap. They just care about themselves. As long as their selves are as long as they're as long as they're being, what they want is being fulfilled, it doesn't matter about anything else. That's something that I've really had a hard time rationalizing or just accepting, because it's really pretty sad. It's pretty messed up, but it's what I see, and it's very difficult to see anything otherwise, aside from the fact that, again, they are sacrificial when it comes to their children, but they're not sacrificial when it comes to men. No. They will replace you. They will replace you very easily. And so this all ties into the theory that, the female solipsistic theory. Very, very rarely have I met women who are altruistic, who are egalitarian, who live on a higher code of morals, a higher code of, not loving the self over anything else, not protecting and building up their selves over anything else. Again, it's not to say that men don't do that too. It's just that we're not really that way by nature, I don't believe. I think men are really oriented for their own kingdom. Men are, inclined for kingship. And by kingship, I mean that metaphorically, in the sense that, a good king, okay, there are tyrants, believe me, there are tyrants, okay, and there are tyrants in the family kingdom as well. I'm not going to say there's no bad men out there, there's no bad kings, there's no bad family men, because there are tyrants. But when it comes to a good king in a proper kingdom, he loves his subjects. He loves his people. Okay, he loves his kingdom, and his love is a true love. I believe a good king loves his kingdom and his citizens, if you will, with a true love. A sacrificial love, a warm love, okay? Not a you're my subject kind of love. No, and this is what feminism tries to put on men, and the patriarchy, woo, that we're just these oppressive tyrants. And it's not to say that there weren't men in the past who were CEOs of companies or presidents or whatever, who were real tyrants, who really did utilize their power for oppression. I'm not saying that, but there was no conspiracy to do this with all men, and because this is what women like to say, that all men are part of the patriarchy and all men are. I don't believe that in the least. I believe that some were. Again, just like there's some Donald Trumps out there. There are some narcissists. There are some megalomaniacs. But a good quality man, a good quality quote-unquote king, if you will, loves his kingdom. Meaning that's what his motivation is. His motivation is love. And it benefits himself, but it's not a selfish type of love. It's not a solipsistic love like it is for women. And we see this all the time. A woman can take or leave a man. It's just her nature. She can take or leave a man. That's not irreplaceable for a woman. What is irreplaceable is her children. She does have a sacrificial love for her children, but even then it's really still kind of a selfish love. A good king in a proper kingdom is not really a selfish love. It's not the same kind. It's not a solipsistic love. It's a sacrificial love. I wouldn't even say it's a sacrificial love. I would say it's more of a true love. But men are sacrificial. We have to be sacrificial. We have to sacrifice our time. We have to sacrifice a lot of our goals and our hobbies and things that, guys have lofty, grandiose dreams. We dream of traveling the world. We dream of writing books. We dream of being race car driver. We have to give all that up, whatever it may be when it comes to having a family. And it's not to say that women don't give up anything either, but it's a different kind of thing. We dream of glory because it's attached to accomplishment. Men dream of glory because it's attached to accomplishment. Men like to accomplish things. It's not the same with women. Women dream of kind of a selfish glory, of kind of a. I wouldn't even say women really dream of glory. They just like themselves. They just want what they want. So when it comes to, the reason why I say all that is because when it comes to groups of women, when it comes to groups together, because they're solipsistic, when they get into these groups of other beautiful women, let's say a group, in a loose sense, let's say like a city. Say they're in a city, you can call it a group, whatever, quote unquote, with a lot of other hot women, a lot of women who are hotter than them. All of a sudden, they adapt and they become, or you could say they start to adapt and they become less diva-esque. They become less selfish. They become less narcissistic because they realize they're getting beat. They realize they're not the top dog. And you'll notice this. I see this phenomenon. Like I said, it's a phenomenon that I see in hot areas. Florida, California, and even you could say maybe Jamaica or Puerto Rico. Hawaii is a bit different. Hawaii, because there's not that many people, it's different. There's not that many people in Hawaii, so it's a bit of a different thing. But again, and that really helps to prove my point, because when there's a lot of people, like say California has a lot of people, and so does Florida, and when there's your big cities like say Orlando or Miami or LA or even Vegas, I've noticed it with Vegas as well, Las Vegas, when you're in these places that are like really high profile and there's just gorgeous women everywhere. I don't know if you've ever been to Vegas or you've ever been to say LA, even San Francisco somewhat, San Francisco or Orlando or Miami, the Florida Keys. You go to these places. If you've been to these places, you'll notice that there's a large amount of hot women, and it's because of the weather. It's because they want to go there for the weather, so they travel from other places or whatever. And if you notice their culture, I don't know if you ever talked to like a California girl, a girl from LA, or a girl from, they're like pretty down to earth. I talked to a girl from Vegas the other day, and she was gorgeous and she was so normal. I was like, dang, where do they make girls like you? Obviously in Vegas or LA. I live in Seattle, so usually when I get along with somebody or I meet somebody and they're really cool, like a girl or whatever, they're usually not from Seattle. Like 9 times out of 10, they're usually from Arizona or California or Florida. It's never they're here. They come from here. Why? Because I live in a place where the weather sucks. The weather sucks in Seattle, and people want to move. Hot people don't want to live where the weather sucks. Hot people want to move to where the weather's amazing. And again, when they do that, when this happens, when there's a culture or a city or a town or whatever that is full of just amazingly beautiful women, you'll notice that they become more down to earth. Because they're no longer incompetent. They're no longer, I wouldn't say incompetent. They're no longer the top dog. They're no longer the big fish in the small pond. Now they got to compete with for real 10s. Like they might have been a 10. You might be a 10 in Minnesota, but you go to California and you're a 6. For real. Like that's what it is. No joke. You might be a 10 in I don't know, say Detroit or someplace cold. And the politics and the economy is shitty. You might be a 10 there, but you freaking go to California, you're a 4 or a 5. Not even kidding, man. And it's a crazy phenomenon. They're more down to earth. They're more apt to talk to you like you're a human being. Like this is the problem that I've always had with women. Like you can't talk to them like they're normal human beings. Like you just can't. They're weird. They're like neurotic. They're narcissistic. They got these crazy attitudes because they can afford to. Men can't. We can't afford to have insane attitudes. We can't afford to be jerks. We can't, because we'll probably get beat up by another guy, or we'll lose a job, or it just won't float. Women can. It's actually more attractive if they are somehow to them. Or it's like, how does that even? It's like, are you even a human being? I like Louis C.K. I heard about his controversy. He's a funny guy, and he makes fantastic points in a lot of his really funny comedy. And one of the things he said was he has this video out there on YouTube about hot girls, and he's like, what are even hot girls? Like, what are you? What do you even do? And it's like, and he parodies the voice of a hot girl. He's like, well, I'm at the bar and I go to this bar and guys want to fuck me, and then I go to that bar and guys want to fuck me, and that's what I do. And it's like, he's like, what even are you? I can't relate with that. And it's so true. Like, you cannot relate with a hot girl. They're not down to earth, man. It's surprising when a hot girl can actually have a conversation with you. It's surprising. And girls always like to use the excuse, well, I don't like to have conversations with guys because they always think I'm flirting, or they always think that I want to fuck them or something. It's like, that's not it. You've just never had to be normal. You've never had to. Like, your whole life you've what I call the princess syndrome. You have lived in this bubble where everybody treats you like your shit doesn't stink because you're pretty, and you don't have to be normal. You don't have to talk like a normal person. Now, I will say it's a bit different in New York. New York women have had to adapt, at least from the New York women that I've met. New York women are more down to earth. It's not quite the same phenomenon. I mean, there is a lot of gorgeous women in New York, but it's a colder climate. But I believe the reason why women in New York communicate better is because they have to make a lot of money, because New York is a very expensive place to live. And so I believe that because of that, they've had to adapt. But in other places, it's just like, you can't even have a conversation with the average woman. You just can't. Like, they're just... And I think they mean to themselves. I think that they mean to do that, in their own way, because I think that they think it makes them more alluring, and I think that it makes men want them more. And in a way, I suppose that's true. In a way, I guess, but it's true in an annoying way. Like, yeah, human nature wants something it can't have. It wants something more that it can't access. If they're more down to earth, if they're more normal, then it means that they're more on our level, and they don't want that. Which is just, it's such a mind fuck. The psychology behind why they would do that. It's like, and it's like, it makes you wonder, do they even have the ability to be normal, and they just turn it off and choose to be weirdos and choose to be these aloof divas who don't even communicate normally, who just say really narcissistic, condescending things to men and anybody else. It's like, they're like that until they're 40 and they hit the wall and their looks are and then they just become alcoholic wrecks, because they've never had to adapt. They've never been forced to be normal. They've never been forced to communicate with anyone on a normal level. So it's always surprising to me when I meet a girl who just, like, she can communicate, she can have a conversation, she's down to earth, she's not full of selfishness, she's not full of narcissism, she's humble. Like, those things are so underrated when it comes to a woman, those traits. But I just don't ever see it. And if I do, it's usually because she's not from Seattle. She's not from Washington. Washington's a cold place. It gets rains all the time, and there's a lot of snow in certain areas. And I mean, it's a beautiful state, but the weather's not great. So when you go to a place where it's hot, warm weather, and there's all these beautiful people everywhere, and of course, when the weather's hot, you wear short shorts, and it's just like, there's just gorgeous women everywhere. Then it's like, it's a whole different dynamic, man. Women are in those places. Women are actually adapting to become more normal, and it's like, whoa! It's always weird when I meet a girl who's like kind of normal and down to earth. It's like, that's so underrated. That's so attractive. If I have to work, if it's like a one-way street, and women want to do that, they want it to be a one-way street. They want it to be you working to get their attention, you working for everything. They make you work for every yard, like on a football field. Like, you got to work for every yard you get with certain women, with most women. And it's just like, you're doomed from the start. No wonder guys go MGTOW. No wonder guys are saying, peace, I'm out. Because it's all work. It's all one end. It's only one end. It's all on your end. It's not, she's not doing anything. All she has to do is sit up there like a queen on her pedestal and, okay, who's going to fight for me? Who's going to come get me? You know, it's like, ugh, it's so, ugh, it's just so, it's so, anyway. So I noticed that, it's an interesting thing, man. Why women in groups view themselves as less attractive. You know, they do. When there's 10s everywhere, they start to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not a 10. I used to be a big fish in a small pond. Now I'm on this campus where there's gorgeous women everywhere, or I'm at this beach and there's gorgeous women everywhere, and I'm not the top dog. I'm not the number one. You know, but you go to some obscure city or some cold area and it's like, you're a 7 out of 10. All of a sudden, you're like a 10 out of 10. But you go to, LA or Florida or whatever, and all of a sudden you're a 5 out of 10. It's like, they don't like that, man. They don't like that. So if you're not a 10 out of 10, you shouldn't move to a hot area, because your worth and your value is gonna be less. Anyways, guys, I just wanted to point that out. Appreciate you listening. It's been Jay Lee, Northwest Podcast. Peace.